Welcome to Cheating Tales Lab. We're excited to have you with us. We hope you enjoy today's story. It's going to be a wild ride. So, grab a seat and let's get started. I zipped up my suitcase, double-checking I had everything for my business trip. Phone, wallet, passport, all set. I glanced at the clock, still plenty of time to get to the airport. Stella, I called out, "I'm heading out now." My wife appeared in the doorway, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders. "Have a safe trip, Santiago. Don't forget to call when you land." I nodded, giving her a quick peck on the cheek. "Will do. Take care, babe." As I loaded my luggage into the car, I couldn't shake the feeling I was forgetting something. Shrugging it off, I pulled out of the driveway and headed for the airport. The traffic was lighter than usual, and I made good time. As I parked in the short-term lot, it hit me my phone charger. Damn it, I'd be gone for a week. There was no way I could manage without it. I debated for a moment. My flight wasn't for another 2 hours. If I hurried, I could make it back home and still catch my plane. Decision made. I reversed out of the parking spot and sped back towards a house. 20 minutes later, I pulled into our driveway. The house looked quiet, peaceful. I chuckled to myself, imagining Stella's surprise when I walked back in. I unlocked the front door quietly, not wanting to startle her. As I stepped inside, I heard a noise from upstairs. Muffled voices, a laugh. My brow furrowed. Was Stella watching TV? I climbed the stairs, the sounds growing clearer. They were coming from our bedroom. My steps slowed as I approached the partially open door. Something wasn't right. "Oh, Corey," Stella's voice purred. "You're insatiable." A deep male chuckle responded. "Can you blame me? Look at you." My blood ran cold. Corey, my gym trainer, with my wife. I pushed the door open, the scene before me searing into my brain. Both of them frozen, staring at me with wide eyes. "Santiago," Stella gasped, scrambling off Corey. We. I held up a hand, silencing her. "Save it." Corey sat up, reaching for his shirt. "Listen, man, I can explain." My fist connected with his jaw before he could finish, sending him sprawling back onto the bed. The satisfying crunch of bone meeting bone did little to quell the rage burning inside me. Stella shrieked, "Santiago, stop. It's not what you think." I turned to her, my voice dangerously low. "Not what I think. Please, enlighten me. What exactly is this?" She fumbled for words, her arrogance crumbling. It just happened. Just happened." I laughed bitterly. "Like you just happened to doing all this. Like he just happened to end up here." Corey groaned, rubbing his jaw. "Look, we didn't mean for this to—" "Shut up," I snarled, turning back to him. "You're lucky that's all you're getting." I pulled out my phone, quickly capturing a video the guilt written all over their faces. "What are you doing?" Stella demanded. "Insurance," I replied coldly. "Now, both of you stay put. We're not done here." I backed out of the room, slamming the door shut and wedging a chair under the handle. Their muffled protests followed me as I stormed downstairs. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone again. First call Stella's parents. "Mr. Fisher?" Her father's voice answered. "Is everything all right?" "No, sir, it's not," I replied. "I need you and Mrs. Fisher to come over right away. There's a situation with Stella." "What kind of situation?" he asked, concern evident. "It's best if you see for yourself. Please, come quickly." Next call Jean Robinson, Corey's wife. "Jean, it's Santiago Fisher. I need you to come to my house immediately. It's about Corey." "Is he okay?" she asked, worry in her voice. "Physically, yes, but you need to be here. Now." I ended the call, pacing the living room as I waited. The muffled sounds of argument drifted down from upstairs. Let them fight. Let them try to come up with excuses. Nothing could justify this betrayal. 20 minutes later, The doorbell rang. I opened it to find Stella's parents and Jean, all wearing expressions of confusion and concern. Santiago, what's going on? Stella's mother asked as they entered. I took a deep breath. Follow me. I led them upstairs, their questions fading as they heard the voices from the bedroom. Removing the chair, I threw open the door. Oh my God, Jean gasped. The scene was damning enough. Stella's father pushed past me, his face red with anger. What the hell is going on here? He demanded. Stella burst into tears. Daddy, I can explain. Explain what? I cut in. How I caught you both red-handed. How you betrayed our marriage. Corey stepped forward, hands raised. Listen, everyone. This is all a misunderstanding. Jean's voice cut through the room like ice. A misunderstanding, Corey? What exactly am I misunderstanding? The next hour was a blur of shouting, tears, and accusations. Stella and Corey, faced with the evidence and our witnesses, finally admitted to their affair. The look of disgust on her parents' faces was almost satisfying. How could you do this? Stella's mother cried. To Santiago? To your family. Stella's father shook his head, his voice trembling with anger. You're no daughter of ours. Not after this. Jean stood quietly for a moment, then turned to Corey. I want a divorce. His face paled. Jean, please. We can work this out. There's nothing to work out, she replied coldly. We're done. I turned to Stella and Corey, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Get out, both of you, now. Stella's eyes widened. Santiago, where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore, I replied. You made your choice. Now live with it. As they gathered their things, the weight of what had happened began to settle on me. My marriage, my trust, shattered in an instant. But as I watched them leave, I felt something else growing inside me, a determination. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Stella paused at the door, looking back at me with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, Santiago. I never meant to hurt you. I met her gaze, my voice cold. Save your apologies. You'll need them more than I do. As the door closed behind them, I turned to the others. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry you had to see this. Stella's parents hugged me, assuring me I had their full support. Jean nodded at me, a silent understanding passing between us. As they left, I found myself alone in the suddenly empty house. I sank onto the couch, my mind racing. The business trip was forgotten. All I could think about was how to make Stella and Corey pay for their betrayal. They thought they could humiliate me. They had no idea what was coming. I pulled out my phone, canceling my flight and hotel reservations. Then I made a new call. Patrick, it's Santiago. I need your help planning something. Something big. As I hung up, a grim smile spread across my face. Stella and Corey's little affair was about to become very, very public, and I was going to enjoy every moment of their downfall. The next few days passed in a blur of anger and planning. I threw myself into work, using my connections in the boxing world to set my revenge in motion. But Stella and Corey weren't content to go quietly. It started with a phone call from my business partner, Alex. Santiago, we've got a problem, he said, his voice tense. Have you seen the news? I pulled up a news site on my computer, and there it was. Splashed across the screen were private photos of Stella and me from our last vacation. Intimate moments I thought were ours alone, now exposed for the world to see. What the hell? I muttered, scrolling through the article. Alex continued, It's not just the photos, Santiago. There's more. As I read on, my blood began to boil. Along with the photos, key details about our upcoming business deals had been leaked. Confidential information that only Stella and I knew. Those backstabbing bastards, I growled. What do you want to do? Alex asked. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think clearly. Damage control. Call our lawyers. Get them to work on taking down those photos. I'll handle the business side. As soon as I hung up, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Enjoying the spotlight, Santiago? This is just the beginning. That's it. I clenched my fist, resisting the urge to throw my phone across the room. They wanted to play dirty? Fine. I could play dirtier. I spent the next few hours in back-to-back calls, doing my best to salvage our business deals. Most of our partners were understanding, but the damage was done. Our stock took a hit, and whispers of instability began to circulate. As evening fell, I found myself staring out the window, my mind racing. The leaked photos and business secrets were a low blow, but I refused to let it break me. If anything, it only fueled my determination for revenge. My phone rang, jolting me from my thoughts. It was Patrick, my trainer and now co-conspirator in my plan for vengeance. "It's all set," he said without preamble. "The next big event is in 2 weeks. You sure you want to do this?" "Absolutely," I replied. "Send out the invitations. Make sure Stella and Corey get theirs personally." Patrick hesitated. "Santiago, I get that you're angry, but is this really the best way to handle it?" I clenched my jaw. They humiliated me, Patrick, betrayed me, and now they're trying to ruin my business. Trust me, this is just the beginning of what they deserve. "All right, man, it's your call. I've got your back." As I hung up, a knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find Jean standing there, looking tired but determined. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside, letting her enter. We hadn't spoken much since that day, both of us dealing with our own pain and anger. Jean settled on the couch, her eyes meeting mine. "I heard about the photos and the leaked information. I'm so sorry, Santiago." I shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. "It's just another low blow from them. Nothing I can't handle." She leaned forward, her voice intense. "What are you planning, Santiago? I know that look in your eyes." For a moment, I considered lying, brushing off her concern. But looking at her, I saw the same pain and betrayal I felt reflected in her eyes. "I'm going to destroy them," I said simply. "Publicly, completely. They want to air our dirty laundry. I'll give them a show they'll never forget." Jean was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Good. I want in." Her response surprised me. "You sure? It's not going to be pretty." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Pretty went out the window when I found my husband in bed with your wife. I want them to pay, Santiago, for both of us." I studied her for a moment, seeing the steel beneath her pain. Then I nodded, a grim smile spreading across my face. "All right then, let's talk strategy." Over the next hour, Jean and I refined my plan, adding her own ideas for maximum impact. As she left, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Stella and Corey thought they had won with their little media stunt. They had no idea what was coming. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. I threw myself into training, pushing my body to its limits. If everything went according to plan, I'd need to be in top form. The night before the event, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie. The man looking back at me was harder, colder than the one who had left for a business trip just weeks ago. That man had died the moment he walked in on his wife's betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text from Patrick. "Everything's ready. You sure about this?" I typed back a simple response. "See you tomorrow." As I climbed into bed, I allowed myself a small smile. Tomorrow, Stella and Corey would learn the true meaning of humiliation, and I would be there to watch them fall. The arena hummed with excitement as I made my way through the VIP entrance. Tonight's boxing match was set to be the biggest event of the year, but for me, it was just the opening act. Patrick met me at the door, concern etched on his face. "Last chance to back out, Santiago." I clapped him on the shoulder. "Not a chance." "Is everything set up?" He nodded. "Video's ready to go. Stella and Corey are here. 3rd row." My jaw clenched at the mention of their names. "Perfect. Let's give them a night they'll never forget." As we walked towards my reserved seat, I scanned the crowd. There they were, Stella and Corey, looking smug and comfortable. Stella wore a dress that showed off her curves, while Corey had his arm draped possessively around her shoulders. The sight made my blood boil. I took my seat, forcing myself to focus on the match. The crowd roared as the fighters entered the ring, but I barely heard it. My mind was on what was to come. The fight was brutal and fast-paced. Under different circumstances, I would have been on the edge of my seat. But tonight, I was just waiting for it to end. Finally, the referee raised the winner's hand. As the crowd cheered, I stood up, making my way to the ring. The announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the ring former boxing champion and tonight's event organizer, Santiago Fisher. A spotlight hit me as I climbed through the ropes. The cheers grew louder. I was still a local hero, despite Stella and Corey's attempts to tarnish my reputation. I grabbed the microphone, my heart pounding. This was it. Thank you all for coming out tonight, I began. We've seen an incredible display of skill and sportsmanship in the ring. But now, I'd like to address something a little more personal. The crowd hushed, sensing the shift in tone. I could see Stella and Corey shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Many of you may have seen some compromising photos of me in the media recently, along with some sensitive business information. Murmurs rippled through the audience. I pressed on. What you don't know is the story behind those leaks. A story of betrayal, of infidelity, of two people who thought they could humiliate me without consequences. I locked eyes with Stella, watching the color drain from her face. My wife, Stella, and my former trainer, Corey Robinson, thought they could destroy my reputation. They leaked those photos, those secrets. But they forgot one thing. I paused, letting the tension build. I'm Santiago Fisher, and I don't go down without a fight. With that, I nodded to Patrick. The big screen above the ring flickered to life. The video started playing, showing the moment I had walked in on Stella and Corey. The crowd gasped as they watched Corey, writhing in pain after my punch, Stella's arrogant attitude clear as day. I watched Stella and Corey's faces as their betrayal was laid bare for all to see. Stella had her head in her hands, while Corey looked like he wanted to disappear. As the video ended, I spoke again. Stella, Corey, I hope you're enjoying the show. You wanted to air our dirty laundry? Well, here it is. The crowd was a mix of shocked silence and angry mutters. I could see people turning to stare at Stella and Corey, recognition dawning on their faces. But I'm not done yet, I continued. Corey Robinson, I have a challenge for you. Corey's head snapped up, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and anger. I smiled, knowing I had him exactly where I wanted him. I'm challenging you to a boxing match, Corey. A multi-million-dollar contract. Winner takes all. The crowd erupted in cheers and jeers. I could see Corey squirming in his seat, looking around desperately for an escape. What's the matter, Corey? I taunted. You had no problem sneaking around behind my back. Let's see how you fare face to face. The chant started, low at first, then growing louder. Fight! 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 Corey stood up, his face red with anger and embarrassment. You're crazy, Santiago. I'm not fighting you. I laughed, the sound echoing through the arena. What's wrong? Scared you can't measure up in the ring either. The crowd's chants grew louder, the pressure building. I could see Corey's resolve crumbling under the weight of thousands of eyes on him. Finally, he snapped. Fine. You want to fight? You've got one. The arena exploded with cheers as Corey made his way to the ring. Stella tried to stop him, grabbing his arm, but he shook her off. I looked in his eyes. Show me what you got now, and then we'll decide for the rematch with multi-million-dollar contact. I'm ready. I turned to the announcer. Make an announcement. The announcer, still looking shell-shocked, nodded and raised his microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears we have an impromptu match. In the blue corner, former champion Santiago Fisher, and in the red corner, challenger Corey Robinson. I stripped off my jacket and shirt, handing them to Patrick. Corey did the same, his movements stiff with anger. As we faced off in the center of the ring, I could see the fear in Corey's eyes. He might have been younger, but I had years of experience on him. The referee looked between us, clearly unsure about this unexpected turn of events. "Gentlemen, are you sure about this?" I nodded, never taking my eyes off Corey. "Absolutely." Corey hesitated for a moment, then nodded as well. The referee sighed. "All right then, let's have a clean fight. Touch gloves and come out boxing." We tapped gloves, the gesture a mockery of sportsmanship. As we returned to our corners, I caught sight of Stella in the crowd. She was pale, her eyes wide with shock. Good. This was just the beginning of her nightmare. The bell rang, and Corey came out swinging. He was all raw power and aggression, but no technique. I easily dodged his wild punches, countering with quick jabs that found their mark every time. By the end of the first round, Corey was already breathing hard, a cut opening above his eye. I, on the other hand, had barely broken a sweat. As the fight wore on, I systematically broke Corey down. Each punch was payback for every lie, every betrayal. The crowd was going wild, but I barely heard them. My world had narrowed to just Corey and me. I saw my opening. Corey dropped his guard for just a second, and I struck. A devastating combination left hook, right cross, left uppercut. Corey went down hard, and this time he didn't get up. The referee started the count, but I already knew it was over. As he reached 10, the arena erupted in cheers. I stood in the center of the ring, my arms raised in victory. But this wasn't just about winning a fight. This was about reclaiming my life, my dignity. The medics attended to Corey. "You still want to have rematch?" Corey managed to say, "I'll destroy you in the rematch. Today I was not prepared, but I'll take my revenge for today's humiliation. I'll sign the contract," and he passed out. I grabbed the microphone one last time. "Thank you all for witnessing this tonight," I said, my voice carrying over the crowd. "Let this be a lesson. You can try to knock me down, but I'll always get back up. And I'll come back stronger. Corey and I will have a rematch with multi-million-dollar contact, and the winner takes it all. Stay tuned for more updates." With that, I left the ring, leaving behind a battered Corey and a stunned Stella. As I walked out of the arena, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. This was just the beginning of my comeback, and I was ready for whatever came next. The morning after the fight, I woke up with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in weeks. My body ached from the exertion, but my mind was clear. I had a new mission now, to prepare for the official rematch with Corey and to take down Stella legally. I called Patrick as soon as I got up. "We need to start training today," I told him. "Already? You just had a fight last night," Patrick replied, concern evident in his voice. "That was just a warm-up," I said. "The real fight is coming. I want to be ready." Patrick sighed. "All right, meet me at the gym in an hour. We'll start putting together a training plan." After a quick breakfast, I headed to the gym. As I walked in, I saw Patrick setting up the equipment. "So, what's the game plan?" I asked, starting to wrap my hands. Patrick turned to face me. "First things first, we need to assess where you're at. That impromptu fight last night might have taken more out of you than you realize." We spent the next hour going through various exercises and drills. By the end, I was drenched in sweat, but feeling invigorated. "Not bad," Patrick said, nodding approvingly. "But we've got work to do if you want to be in top form for the rematch." "Whatever it takes," I replied. "I'm not just fighting Corey this time. I'm fighting for my reputation, my business, everything." Patrick's expression turned serious. "Speaking of which, have you thought about the legal side of things? Stella and Corey's little stunt with those photos and business secrets. That's got to have some consequences." I nodded, already on it. "I've got a meeting with my lawyer this afternoon. After a shower and change of clothes, I headed to my lawyer's office. Mark greeted me with a firm handshake. "Santiago, good to see you. I caught your performance last night. Quite the spectacle, he said, gesturing for me to take a seat. I sat down, leaning forward. It was necessary, but now I need your help to hit them where it really hurts. Mark nodded, pulling out a file. I've already started putting together a case. The leaked photos are a clear violation of privacy laws. And the business secrets? That's corporate espionage territory. Good, I said. I want to go after them with everything we've got, especially Stella. She had access to all that information because she was my wife. I want her to pay for betraying that trust. Mark looked at me carefully. You sure about this, Santiago? Going after her this hard. It's going to get ugly. I met his gaze steadily. I'm sure. They tried to destroy me, Mark. Now it's my turn. We spent the next few hours going over the details of the lawsuit. By the time I left Mark's office, I felt a satisfaction. The wheels of justice were in motion. As I drove home, my phone rang. It was Stella. I hesitated for a moment before answering. What do you want? I asked coldly. Santiago, please. Stella's voice was shaky. What you did last night, it was too much. You're going to destroy everything we built. I laughed bitterly. We? There is no we anymore, Stella. You destroyed that the moment you decided to sleep with Corey. I made a mistake, she cried. Can't we just talk about this? There's nothing to talk about, I replied, except maybe in court. You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon. I hung up before she could respond, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. Her audacity still amazed me. Did she really think she could sweet-talk her way out of this? When I got home, I found Jean waiting on my doorstep. Her face was set in a determined expression. I heard about the lawsuit, she said as I approached. I raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? It's going to get messy. Jean nodded firmly. I'm sure. Corey needs to pay for what he did. To both of us. I unlocked the door, gesturing for her to come inside. All right then, let's talk strategy. As we settled in the living room, I couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. With Jean on my side, our case against Stella and Corey would be even stronger. The road ahead would be tough, but I was ready for the fight. Little did I know, Stella and Corey were preparing for a fight of their own, but I was done being caught off guard. Whatever they threw at me next, I'd be ready. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of training and legal preparations. Every morning, I was at the gym with Patrick, pushing my body to its limits. Every afternoon, I was in meetings with Mark, going over our legal strategy. The media frenzy around the upcoming match and the lawsuit was intense. Everywhere I went, there were reporters shoving microphones in my face, asking for comments. One morning, as I was leaving the gym, a particularly persistent reporter cornered me. Mr. Fisher, can you comment on the allegations made by your wife? She asked, thrusting a microphone towards me. I paused, caught off guard. What allegations? The reporter's eyes lit up, sensing a scoop. Miss Fisher claims that you were physically abusive during your marriage. She says that's why she turned to Mr. Robinson for support. For a moment, I saw red. The audacity of that woman knew no bounds. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Those allegations are completely false, I said firmly. My lawyer will be addressing them shortly. No further comment. I pushed past the reporter, my mind racing. As soon as I got to my car, I called Mark. Have you seen the news? I asked as soon as he picked up. I was just about to call you, Mark replied. Don't worry. We're already drafting a statement denouncing these allegations. We'll also be adding defamation to our lawsuit. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Good. I want to hit back hard on this one, Mark. She's gone too far. After hanging up, I sat in my car for a moment, trying to process this new development. Stella was playing dirty, but two could play at that game. I drove to the TV studio where I knew Stella and Corey were scheduled to give an interview. As I walked in, I could hear their voices coming from the set. We're the victims here, Stella was saying, her voice trembling with fake emotion. Santiago is a controlling, abusive man. Corey was just trying to help me escape. I stepped onto the set, interrupting the interview. The host's eyes widened in surprise. "Mr. Fisher, we weren't expecting you," she said. I smiled coldly. "I'm sure you weren't. But I think it's time we heard both sides of the story, don't you?" Stella and Corey looked like deer caught in headlights. I took a seat across from them, never breaking eye contact. "So, Stella," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "why don't you tell everyone about how abusive I was? Was I abusive when I was working 60-hour weeks to build our business? Or when I was planning surprise vacations for our anniversaries?" Stella stuttered, caught off guard. That's not." I turned to Corey. "And you, Corey, you were just trying to help her escape, right? Is that why I found you in our bed? Were you planning her escape route between her legs?" The host tried to intervene. "Mr. Fisher, please, this is a family show." I held up a hand, silencing her. "No, I think it's time everyone heard the truth. These two aren't victims. They're liars and cheaters who got caught and are now trying to save face." I stood up, addressing the camera directly. "To anyone watching this who's been cheated on, who's been betrayed by someone they trusted, know this: you're not alone. And you don't have to let them win. Fight back. Stand up for yourself, because if you don't, who will?" With that, I walked off the set, leaving a stunned silence in my wake. As I left the studio, my phone buzzed with a text from Patrick. "Saw the interview. That was one hell of a counterpunch. But be careful, champ. They might hit back harder next time." I smiled. Let them try. I was just getting warmed up. Over the next few days, public opinion began to shift. People who had initially sympathized with Stella and Corey were now questioning their story. My impromptu TV appearance had struck a chord with many who had been in similar situations. But Stella and Corey weren't going down without a fight. They continued to make appearances, spinning their story of victimhood. It was exhausting, but I refused to let it distract me from my goals. One evening, as I was reviewing some legal documents, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Jean standing there, looking worried. "Santiago, we need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the house. I closed the door, turning to face her. "What's wrong?" Jean paced the living room, wringing her hands. "I just got a call from Corey. He threatened me, said if I didn't drop the lawsuit, he'd make sure I lost everything in the divorce." My fists clenched at my sides. "He what?" Jean looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. "I'm not backing down, but I'm scared, Santiago. What if he follows through?" I walked over to her, placing my hands on her shoulders. "Listen to me, Jean. We're in this together. I won't let Corey or Stella hurt you. We'll fight them, and we'll win." She nodded, taking a deep breath. "You're right. I needed to hear that, I guess." As Jean left, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about standing up for what was right, about refusing to let bullies and cheaters win. I picked up my phone, dialing Mark's number. "Mark, it's Santiago. I need you to add witness intimidation to our list of charges against Corey, and get me a restraining order while you're at it. It's time we showed them we mean business." As I hung up, I couldn't help but smile. Stella and Corey thought they could play dirty. They had no idea what was coming their way. The day before the fight, tension hung in the air like a thick fog. I'd spent weeks preparing for this moment, pushing my body and mind to their limits. Now it was almost time to put it all to the test. I was at the gym, going through some light exercises with Patrick, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Watch your back, Fisher. Things might not go as planned tomorrow." I showed the message to Patrick, whose brow furrowed in concern. "You think Corey's planning something?" he asked. "Wouldn't put it past him. He's desperate." Patrick clapped me on the shoulder. "We'll be ready for whatever they try. I'll double-check all the equipment myself." As I left the gym, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Corey was a snake, But would he really stoop so low as to try something underhanded during the fight? I drove to the arena for the pre-fight weigh-in, my mind racing with possibilities. As I walked in, I saw Corey and his team on the other side of the room. Our eyes met, and he smirked, a look of smug confidence on his face. The weigh-in proceeded without incident, both of us making weight easily. As we faced off of the cameras, Corey leaned in close. "Hope you're ready for tomorrow, old man," he whispered. "It's going to be a fight you'll never forget." I met his gaze steadily. "Looking forward to it, Corey. Hope you've been practicing your fall. You'll be hitting the canvas a lot." As I turned to leave, I caught sight of Stella in the crowd. She was watching me, her expression unreadable. For a moment, I felt a pang of something. Not regret, exactly, but a sense of what could have been. Then I remembered her betrayal, her lies, and the feeling hardened into resolve. Back at home, I tried to relax, knowing I needed to be well rested for tomorrow. But my mind wouldn't stop racing. What if Corey really was planning something? What if... A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find Patrick standing there, his face etched with concern. "Santiago, we need to talk," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I closed the door behind him. "What's going on?" Patrick ran a hand through his hair. "I've got some intel. Corey might be planning something underhanded for the fight." My jaw clenched. "What kind of something?" "Word is, he's been seen with some shady characters. Guys known for fixing fights," Patrick explained. "I think he might try to tamper with your gloves, or maybe even bribe the referee." I paced the room, my mind racing. "We can't let that happen. The fight's tomorrow. What can we do?" Patrick nodded. "I've got a plan. We'll do a thorough check of all the equipment before the match. I'll personally oversee the wrapping of your hands and the fitting of your gloves. And I've got a trusted friend who'll be watching Corey's corner like a hawk." I clapped Patrick on the shoulder. "Good thinking. Anything else?" "Yeah," Patrick said, his expression serious. "Be prepared for anything in that ring, Santiago. Corey's desperate. There's no telling what he might try." A smile spreading across my face. "Let him try. I'll be ready." As Patrick left, I felt a surge of determination. Corey thought he could cheat his way to victory. He had another thing coming. I spent the rest of the evening going over my strategy, visualizing every possible scenario. When I finally went to bed, my mind was clear and focused. Tomorrow would be the day of reckoning. The next morning, I arrived at the arena early. The air was thick with anticipation. As I made my way to the locker room, I caught sight of Stella in the corridor. Our eyes met for a brief moment before she quickly looked away. In the locker room, Patrick and the rest of my team were already waiting. We went through our pre-fight routine meticulously, checking and double-checking everything. As I warmed up, Patrick approached me. "Santiago, Corey and his team just arrived. My guy says they look nervous." I smirked. "Good. They should be." The hours ticked by, and finally, it was time. As I made my way to the ring, the roar of the crowd washed over me. This was it. Everything I'd been working for came down to this moment. Corey was already in the ring when I climbed in. He tried to look confident, but I could see the fear in his eyes. The referee called us to the center. "All right, gentlemen, I want a clean fight. Obey my commands at all times. Touch gloves and come out fighting." We touched gloves, Corey's hand noticeably clammy. As we turned to go back to our corners, I leaned in close. "Ready to pay for your mistakes, Corey?" I whispered. His face paled, but before he could respond, the bell rang. The crowd's roar faded to a distant hum as Corey and I circled each other. His eyes darted nervously, betraying his fear despite his attempts to look confident. I kept my guard up, waiting for him to make the first move. Corey lunged forward with a wild right hook. I easily sidestepped it, countering with a sharp jab to his ribs. "That all you got, Corey?" I taunted. No wonder Stella got bored. His face contorted with anger, and he rushed at me with a flurry of punches. I blocked most of them, but one caught me on the cheek. It stung, but I did worse. As we continued to trade blows, I noticed something off about Corey's gloves. They seemed to have an unusual weight to them. My suspicions from earlier came flooding back. During a clinch, I whispered to the referee, "Check his gloves. Something's not right." The ref nodded imperceptibly and called for a break. He examined Corey's gloves closely, his expression growing more serious by the second. "These gloves have been tampered with," the referee announced. "They're loaded." The crowd erupted in boos and jeers. Corey's face went pale. I didn't know," he stammered. "My trainer, he must have—" The referee turned to me. "Mr. Fisher, as the wrong party, you have the right to call for a disqualification. Do you want to end the fight?" I looked at Corey, trembling in the center of the ring, then at Stella in the front row, her face a mask of shock and shame. This was my chance to end it all, to claim victory without throwing another punch. But that wasn't what I wanted. That wasn't why I was here. "No," I said firmly. "I want to continue. Give him a new pair of gloves. Let's settle this fair and square." The referee looked surprised but nodded. "As you wish." We'll resume the fight after a short break to change Mr. Robinson's gloves. As we waited for the new gloves, Patrick rushed to my corner. "Are you crazy?" he hissed. "This is your chance to end it." I shook my head. "I didn't come here for an easy win, Patrick. I came here to prove a point, and I'm going to do it the right way." Patrick sighed but nodded. "All right, champ. It's your call." Once Corey had his new regulation gloves on, we resumed our positions. The ref gave us a final warning about clean fighting, and the bell rang. Corey came out swinging, desperation fueling his attacks. But without his loaded gloves, his punches lacked their earlier impact. I weathered the storm, biding my time. "What's wrong, Corey?" I taunted between blocks. "Missing your little advantage?" He growled and lunged forward. "Shut up and fight, old man." I saw my opening and took it. A quick 1-2 combination snapped Corey's head back, followed by a brutal body shot that had him gasping for air. "That's for sleeping with my wife," I snarled. Corey stumbled back, his guard dropping. I pressed my advantage, landing blow after blow. Each punch was fueled by months of anger and betrayal. "This is for trying to ruin my business," I said, landing a crushing right hook. Corey's legs wobbled, but he stayed up. "Barely." "And this," I said, winding up for the final blow, "is for thinking you could ever beat me." My fist connected with his jaw in a picture-perfect uppercut. Corey's eyes rolled back, and he crumpled to the canvas like a marionette with its strings cut. The referee started the count, but it was a mere formality. Corey wasn't getting up. 10. "It's over," the ref shouted, waving his arms. The crowd exploded in cheers. I raised my arms in victory, my chest heaving with exertion and emotion. As the medical team rushed to attend to Corey, I caught sight of Stella. She was staring at me, her expression a mix of awe and regret. I held her gaze for a moment, then turned away. That chapter of my life was over. Patrick climbed into the ring, enveloping me in a bear hug. "You did it, champ. You showed them all." I nodded, still catching my breath. "Yeah, we did it. But it's not over yet." The ring announcer handed me the microphone. It was time to address the crowd, to put the final nail in the coffin of Corey and Stella's betrayal. As I raised the mic to my lips, I knew that what I was about to say would change everything. The real victory wasn't in the ring. It was in what came next. The arena fell silent as I raised the microphone. Thousands of eyes were fixed on me, waiting to hear what I had to say. I took a deep breath, my gaze sweeping over the crowd before landing on Stella and Corey's corner. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. "What you witnessed tonight wasn't just a boxing match. It was a fight for integrity, for justice, and for the truth." I paused, letting my words sink in. The crowd was hanging on every word. Many of you know the story behind this fight. How I was betrayed by the two people I trusted most in this world. My wife, Stella, and my former trainer, Corey Robinson. Boos erupted from the crowd at the mention of their names. I held up a hand, silencing them. Their affair was bad enough, but they didn't stop there. They tried to destroy my reputation, my business, everything I've worked for my entire life. I turned, pointing directly at Corey, who was being tended to by the medical team. And tonight, we saw just how far they were willing to go. Loaded gloves, Corey? Really? Is that how little faith you had in your own abilities? The crowd jeered again. Corey couldn't meet my eyes. But here's the thing, I continued. Their attempts to bring me down, they failed. Not just tonight, but every step of the way. Because when you build your life on lies and deceit, it's bound to come crashing down eventually. I paused, my gaze finding Stella in the front row. She looked small, defeated. To those of you out there who've been betrayed, who've had your trust broken, I want you to know something. You can come back from it. You can rise above it. And you can come out stronger on the other side. The crowd cheered, many rising to their feet. As for Corey and Stella, I said, my voice hardening, your actions tonight and over the past months will have consequences. Legal action will be taken, not just for the loaded gloves, but for the leaked photos, the business secrets, all of it. I saw Stella's face pale, while Corey looked like he wanted to disappear into the canvas. But more than that, I continued, you'll have to live with what you've done, with the knowledge that when put to the test, you chose dishonesty and cowardice. That's a weight you'll carry long after any legal punishments are over. I turned back to the crowd, my voice softening slightly. To my fans, my supporters, and everyone who stood by me through this ordeal, thank you. Your faith in me, your encouragement, it meant more than you could ever know. The cheers grew louder. I raised my hand, acknowledging their support. And finally, to the boxing community and sports world at large, let this serve as a reminder. Integrity matters. Fair play matters. We owe it to ourselves, to our fans, and to the sports we love to always strive for honesty and excellence. I lowered the microphone, signaling the end of my speech. The arena erupted in thunderous applause and cheers. As I looked around, I saw people on their feet, many with tears in their eyes. Patrick appeared at my side, clapping me on the back. Damn, Santiago, you just became a legend. I grinned, the weight of the past months finally lifting from my shoulders. Thanks, Patrick. Couldn't have done it without you. As we made our way out of the ring, reporters swarmed around us, shouting questions. I held up a hand, silencing them. One at a time, please, I said. I've got all night. A young reporter pushed to the front. Mr. Fisher, what's next for you after this? I smiled. Well, first, I'm going to celebrate this victory with my team. Then, I'm going to focus on growing my boxing promotion business. There are a lot of young fighters out there who deserve a fair shot, and I intend to give it to them. Another reporter chimed in. Any words for Stella and Corey? I paused, considering my words carefully. I've said all I need to say to them. It's time to move forward as we continue to field questions. I caught sight of Jean making her way towards us. Her face was beaming with a mix of pride and relief. Santiago, she said, reaching us. That was incredible. You really did it. I pulled her into a quick hug. We did it, Jean. Couldn't have made it through all this without your support. She smiled, a hint of mischief in her eyes. So, does this mean I get a job in your new promotion company? I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. You know what? Why not? Let's talk about it over dinner. I think we've all earned a celebration tonight. As we made our way out of the arena, surrounded by cheering fans and flashing cameras, I couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. Not just over Corey in the ring, but over all the obstacles that had been thrown my way. The road ahead was bright, full of new opportunities and challenges. But for now, I was content to bask in the glow of victory, surrounded by the people who had stood by me through it all. The betrayal that had once threatened to destroy me had instead become the catalyst for my greatest triumph. And as I stepped out into the cool night air, I knew that the best was yet to come. The weeks following the fight were a whirlwind of activity. True to my word, I threw myself into expanding my boxing promotion business. The publicity from the fight had put me in a unique position, and I was determined to make the most of it. One morning, as I sat in my new office overlooking the city, there was a knock at the door. "Come in," I called out. Jean walked in, a stack of papers in her hand. "Morning, boss. Ready to go over today's agenda." I grinned, still getting used to our new working relationship. "Hit me with it." She sat down across from me. "All right, first up, we've got a meeting with that young heavyweight prospect, Marcus Johnson. His manager's eager to sign with us." I nodded. "Good. What else?" The lawyers called. They want to discuss the final settlement in the Stella and Corey case. I leaned back in my chair, considering this. What are they proposing? Jean consulted her notes. Stella's agreeing to a no-contest divorce. She'll forfeit any claim to the business or your personal assets. Corey's facing a hefty fine and a suspension from boxing for the loaded gloves incident. I drummed my fingers on the desk. And the leaked photos and business secrets? They're both signing non-disclosure agreements. Any further leaks will result in severe financial penalties. I nodded slowly. All right, set up a call with the lawyers. Let's wrap this up and put it behind us. Jean made a note, then hesitated. There's one more thing, Santiago. Stella, she's requesting a meeting with you. Says she wants to apologize in person. I felt a twinge of something. Not quite anger, not quite sadness. Just a dull ache where my feelings for Stella used to be. Tell her no, I said firmly. Whatever she has to say, she can say it through the lawyers. That chapter of my life is closed. Jean nodded, looking relieved. Understood. I'll let her know. As she turned to leave, I called out, Jean? She paused at the door. Yes, thank you for everything. I couldn't have gotten through all this without you. She smiled warmly. That's what friends are for, Santiago. Now, let's go make some champions. The rest of the day flew by in a blur of meetings, phone calls, and planning sessions. By the time evening rolled around, I was exhausted but exhilarated. As I was packing up to leave, Patrick burst into my office, a huge grin on his face. Santiago, have you seen the news? I raised an eyebrow. What news? He grabbed the remote, turning on the office TV. A news anchor was mid-sentence. And in a shocking turn of events, former boxer Corey Robinson has been arrested on charges of attempted fight fixing and fraud. This comes just weeks after his highly publicized loss to Santiago Fisher. I stared at the screen, a mix of emotions washing over me. Well, I'll be damned. Patrick clapped me on the shoulder. Looks like karma finally caught up with him. I nodded slowly. Yeah, looks like it did. As the news continued to detail Corey's fall from grace, I felt a sense of closure settling over me. The last loose end had been tied up. You know what, Patrick? I said, grabbing my jacket. Let's go grab a drink. I think this calls for a celebration. Patrick grinned. Now you're talking. As we left the office, I took one last look at the TV screen. Corey's mugshot stared back at me, his eyes hollow and defeated. It was a far cry from the smug, confident man who had once betrayed me. Patrick and I made our way to a nearby bar, settling into a quiet booth in the corner. As the bartender brought our drinks, Patrick raised his glass. To justice, he said with a grin. I clinked my glass against his. And to new beginnings. We drank in comfortable silence for a moment before Patrick spoke up. So, what's next for the great Santiago Fisher? I leaned back, considering the question. You know, for the first time in a long time, I'm excited about the future. We've got some promising fighters lined up. The business is booming, and I trailed off as I saw a familiar face enter the bar. It was Jean, looking around nervously. "Jean," I called out, waving her over. "Join us." She smiled, relief washing over her face as she slid into the booth next to me. "Sorry to interrupt your evening," she said, "but I just heard about Corey and I didn't want to be alone." I put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You're not interrupting anything. Your family now, remember?" Patrick nodded in agreement. "The more, the merrier. What do you have, Jean?" As Jean ordered her drink, I couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed. A year ago, I thought I had it all: a loving wife, a successful career, loyal friends. Then it had all come crashing down. But now, sitting here with Patrick and Jean, I realized I hadn't lost everything. I'd gained something new, something stronger. "You know," I said, raising my glass again, "I think we should make a toast." Patrick and Jean looked at me expectantly. "To second chances," I said, "to rising from the ashes, and to the family we choose." "To family," they echoed, clinking their glasses with mine. As we settled into easy conversation, laughing and sharing stories, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The betrayal, the fight, the legal battles, they were all in the past now. What lay ahead was a future full of possibility. A future where I was stronger, wiser, and surrounded by people I could truly trust. The bar's TV was still showing news about Corey's arrest. I caught Jean staring at it, a mix of emotions playing across her face. "Hey," I said softly, drawing her attention back to our table. "You okay?" She nodded, a small smile forming. "Yeah, I am. For the first time in a long time, I really am." I understood exactly what she meant. We'd both been through hell, but we'd come out the other side stronger for it. As the night wore on, we made plans for the future. New fighters to sign, expansion ideas for the business, even a charity event to support victims of domestic abuse. The energy at our table was electric, full of hope and possibility. When we finally left the bar, the city lights twinkled around us like stars. I took a deep breath of the cool night air, feeling truly alive. "You know," I said to Patrick and Jean as we prepared to part ways, "I think this is the beginning of something great." Patrick grinned. "Wouldn't expect anything less from you, champ." Jean nodded in agreement. "Here's to many more victories, in and out of the ring." As I watched them leave, I felt a surge of gratitude. The path that had led me here had been painful, but I wouldn't change it for anything. It had shown me who I really was, what I was capable of, and who I could truly count on. I turned and started walking home, my steps light and purposeful. The future was bright, and I was ready for whatever it might bring. The betrayal that had once threatened to destroy me had become the foundation for my greatest triumph. As I reached my front door, I paused for a moment, looking up at the night sky. A shooting star streaked across the darkness, and I smiled. It was a sign, I decided, a sign of new beginnings, of endless possibilities. I unlocked my door and stepped inside, ready to embrace whatever tomorrow might bring. The story of Santiago Fisher, the man who rose from betrayal to become a true champion, was far from over. It was only just beginning. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.